Hello, friends and colleagues. Welcome back. This is our podcast number 4, second part, where Vivek and I have been discussing a little bit about if there's any better ways to choosing an agency, knowing that probably the current pitch process and the process to defining who your agency partner is not probably working that well. We had in our part 1, we discussed a number of things that Vivek will go through, but in the end, we want to offer a perspective about where the minefields are in terms of this process are, and hopefully give some insight into how to best approach a pitch process going forward. So Vivek, you want to give us a quick recap of the first 3 points, and then we have in part 2 we have like another 6 points to review. So shoot it.
Yes, sir. Hello again, friends and colleagues. We're back. In part 1, we have 9 points that we want to get through. In part 1, we went through 3 points of our suggested new, improved, better agency search process. The first point we talked about was, before starting anything, the advertiser needs to figure out his partner profile. What does that mean? He needs to figure out exactly what is the skill set of the agency he's looking for. So if he's looking for an e-com agency, or if he's looking for some shop that has strong promotional abilities or capabilities, or if he's looking for a mix of e-com with promotion. Whatever it is he's looking for, he has to define it up front, because all agencies don't do everything, even though they say they do. So that was the first one. The second point, once you define what you're looking for, there's literally hundreds, if not thousands, of agencies out there. So you need to actually tap into an expert who knows the market, typically a search consultant, and you need to parse the market and figure out of all those agencies out there, which agencies actually have the capabilities and track record to do what you as a client, as an advertiser, need done. And then the third point is, once you've developed this first cut of agencies, let's say it's 10 agencies, then you take a look at each one of the agency's client lists, and you want to make sure that you are at least a medium-sized client, or in an ideal world, a large and important client for them. If you're a small client at one of these agencies, you really want to discard them, because as much as they promise you first-class service, the reality of it is that if you're a small client, you're going to get small client levels of service. So after these 3 points, we've kind of whittled it down to maybe a short list, a list of semifinalists, maybe 5 to 6 agencies. And then we want to move on to the next point. You want to take it, Ricardo?
Sure. Yeah, I'll comment on this. And given my many years working at the agency, this has probably been one of the I think the biggest issues going into pitches is when you don't really have visibility of the amount of work that the account provides, and so writing a very acute, well-defined statement of work is super important. Not just the campaigns that are going to come up, but try to give the agency an idea over the next 12 months of what kind of work there is, to then do 2 very important things, or a number of things. One is assess the staffing that is needed, the resources that are needed to manage the account, to manage all of this work, and also to properly cost out what that would be in terms of the staffing, in terms of other resources, etc. So why don't you go into a little bit into that, Vivek? It's funnily enough, we continue to see this mistake made early on, and this is something that you and I sort of harp on quite significantly when we run pitches, and I think it's helped a lot.
It's interesting, the last two pitches we've run, we've actually encountered this problem where the statement of work is not actually defined in terms of clear deliverables. There's more of a wish list, as it were. And when you tell an agency, bring me lots of ideas or challenge me, that doesn't really help them to figure out how to staff the business. Now, if you tell them I will have 3 product launches in the year, and for each one of those product launches, I will need an omni-channel launch campaign. Now we're getting specific. Now the agency can actually understand what is required to deliver it and properly cost it out. So
Even beyond
the more
traditional
specific,
advertising, Vivek, understanding what the, who the where the key distribution is going to be, what kind of promotion there is, even point of sale, as much as possible, the agency should have as clear an idea. Because actually they may even bring support and ideas to all the other contact points that are possibly necessary for this.
absolutely. And some advertisers will push back and say, well, I'm not 100% sure exactly what I'm going to be doing next year. That really doesn't matter, because what you're doing is you're trying to set up a benchmark that all agencies can work against, and then whatever staffing plan they have and whatever costing plan they have, you'll be able to do a side-by-side comparison of it. Whenever you decide to assign the account to a specific agency, then you can adjust the statement of work, and the staffing and the compensation will be adjusted accordingly. So the key here is be specific and be consistent so that all the agencies can work against the same deliverables and provide you a staffing plan and a cost that is easily comparable.
Excellent.
Actually, once you've done this, the whittling process continues, because if there's any outliers, you can eliminate them. If there's a reason at this stage to eliminate someone from the process, you can go ahead and do it, and you can narrow down the list of semi-finalists.
Sure.
And then we go into the next point.
Point
You
5
want to take it?
is, yeah,
Or should
no,
I?
it's almost an obvious. But it is all about meeting the people and meeting your team, and getting to know the people who ideally you're going to be working with day in and day out. Not just senior management, but the people who are going to be actually doing the work. And I like something that you say all the time is, you're not buying an agency necessarily, you're buying a team. So your thoughts and perspective on that, Vivek. Taking time to do this is huge before anything is finalized in terms of awarding the business.
I think the meet the people thing melds very well with a credentials presentation. So what you want to do is you want to give them some structure. You want to give them a way to show off their stuff while they're showcasing themselves. So you want to ask them to present their credentials to you with 2 caveats. The first one is you want to make sure that in the credentials you emphasize your areas of interest. So I'm going to go back to my initial point. If e-commerce is a big priority for you, you need to ask the agency, show me what you know about e-commerce and your credentials, and show me case studies on e-commerce. And the other thing is, after the credentials presentation and using it as a base, as a starting point for a discussion, you want to give yourself a half an hour or maybe 45 minutes to actually have a conversation with the people who presented the credentials, who ideally should be the people who are going to run the account. And you can go in a little bit deeper and you can gauge their level of knowledge. You can gauge how well they work as a team. You can gauge if they're the right fit for your sort of business. I remember in my career, I worked on Procter for many years and I worked on McDonald's for many years. And the profile you want on Procter is different from the profile you want on McDonald's. And one is not better than the other. They're just different. So I think when you have this conversation, you have a chance to gauge if the people who are going to work on your account are actually the people with the right profile to do well on your business. And, you know, again, no one is good, no one's bad. We're just looking for the right people to work on the business.
The right people is, I mean, it's, for me, it's crucial. I mean, you're working with people every day, so you want to make sure that you like the people that you work with.
Absolutely, and you want to make sure that the people have the right profile. Again, I'm going to go back to my days moving from Procter to McDonald's, and when the first day I started working on McDonald's, there was a meeting arranged for me to meet the general manager of McDonald's, to have lunch with the general manager of McDonald's. So here I am coming from the Procter world, and I'm thinking, well, we're going to go to a nice restaurant and talk strategy. And the truth of the matter is we walked to the nearest McDonald's, and as we walked in, the general manager, the president of McDonald's, this was in Mexico, you know, he said that one of the tables is dirty over there. Give me a second. And he walked over and he wiped it clean.
Wow.
Right. And
wow.
This blew my mind.
Right.
I mean, this is not something that you would expect in Procter world, but in McDonald's world, everyone is expected to lend a hand.
Sure.
So that was an eye opener for me, and it signaled to me that the rules are different in McDonald's, and you better learn to play by different rules.
Nice bridge to the next point, because not it's, you know, beyond the people, then you want to really understand is how to work together, you know, the ways of working, the processes, you know, getting to know each other about what works for you and what works for me, and finding an agreement and common ground. We have a program that we use when an advertiser has defined which agency and group of people they want to work with, and we take it forward onto the next level. Why don't you tell us a little bit about processes and finding the right ways of working together?
Yeah. So just to take a step back. So at this stage of the game, we know how much it's going to cost to deliver the statement of work. We know who the people are who will be working on our business. And we've confirmed that the agency has the right expertise and the right capabilities to be able to service our business and do what we're looking for. So at this stage of the game, we can actually decide on a presumptive winner. And I say presumptive because there is still some work to be done before declaring a final winner. But here we choose one agency and we say, okay, let's move forward with you tentatively. And here is where we start talking about how we work together with them. And developing advertising is a process. And doing media is also a process. And any process that you want to work, that you want to work smoothly requires some teamwork and some basic understanding and some alignment on objectives. So what you want to do here is, with your presumptive winner, You want to do a one-day workshop where you'll tell each other the do's and don'ts, the things you like and the things you don't like, and the things that are deal breakers, so that it's very clear on both sides up front what they should be doing and what they should be avoiding. You want to come to agreement on a creative vision. Think of it as creative goalposts or media goalposts. And what that is you want to come to agreement on what the final product is going to look like. You want alignment there on both sides, because if you don't have alignment, each side is going to interpret it differently, and it's a recipe for rework. And then you want to come to an agreement on what's the best way to brief the agency. I tend to think that the best way to brief the agency is however the agency wants to be briefed. I don't think it makes any sense in jamming your briefing system down the throat of the agency if the agency is the one who is expected to take that and give you work based on that. So however they want to do it that way, in my opinion. However, in this session, both sides will agree on how to do the briefing. They'll also agree on how to get approvals done, which also includes how feedback is given to the agency. I think we've all lived in situations where you have different levels of approvals, and the work just sort of dies a slow death as it moves up the approval process. You want to avoid that. So figure out how you're going to smooth out the approval process and how to make feedback clear and actionable. And finally, two more things. We like to believe that everything is going to work as we planned it, but then life happens and emergencies happen, and all of a sudden we have to do things differently. So together, advertiser and agency will develop a protocol for handling emergencies. The analogy here is DEFCON 1, DEFCON 2, DEFCON 3 in the armed forces in the US. Depending on how bad the emergency is, the process changes. And the last point is there's going to be conflicts. There's going to be differences of opinion. So both sides agree on how they're going to handle and resolve differences of opinion in a productive manner so that nothing gets stuck in the system. I heard the phrase recently, middle management permafrost, that describes projects that get stuck on a junior level and never get up to the senior level where decisions can be made. You want to avoid the permafrost.
Great ideas.
Big ideas. They get nitpicked to death.
Right.
Along the process. So you want to have an efficient system to resolve these differences of opinion. And once you have that, you put it down in a document, both sides sign the document, and you have rules of engagement, or as we like to call it, a working prenuptial agreement for the relationship.
Right.
Did I miss anything?
Nothing like eliminating things, actions, steps that create more tension in the relationship and doesn't allow for the creative juices to flow as much as possible. So I totally agree. Going on to the next point, which is point number 7, and we've got 2 more after this one, but a big topic of discussion has always been, when you pitch agencies, what do you ask them to do? Is it just typically it's a credentials presentation, maybe there's a chemistry meeting, and then there is an RFP that may have a technical proposal or a campaign to be submitted, a strategy, etc. There's been a lot of debate about whether that's the right way to go or just work with credentials. But ultimately, what we're trying to find out is, do I have a fit? my organization, does my organization have a fit with the agency that we have asked to tender? And you and I have discussed something that we believe in significantly, because it's more than just a campaign that's presented. It's more than just an idea, which most always never go on air. But tell us a little bit about some of the things that we think about in terms of doing a pilot program of working together on a couple of projects.
Well, when under the traditional process where you have a final pitch presentation, you really the presentation is designed to dazzle, and it often does, but it doesn't really tell you what life is going to be like the day after the presentation, and that's what really matters. So the only way to actually gauge what life is like on a day-to-day basis is by working on real projects on a day-to-day basis with the agency. So what you want to do is you want to set up a pilot that can be 1, 2, 3, as many projects as you want, but put a time frame on it. Let's say 3 months, or if you want 6 months, and set up some objectives.
Paid for.
Of course, that's really important. You as the an ex-managing director, tell us why it's important for it to be paid for.
Paid for, because it's time dedicated to an account, and we're investing together, ideally in a potential relationship.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be the full fee. It could be more of a symbolic thing, but the idea is, this is not about making money. This is about making sure that the right fit is there between the agency and the advertiser.
Exactly. And you know what? I also think it's fundamentally unfair to always ask an agency to be investing in things that may or may not work out, right? Mm-hmm. So if they're going to do the pilot with you, it's just equitable to help them out with their costs. Maybe not the full fee as you suggested, as you mentioned, but certainly pay them something. And as I was saying, set up some metrics on how you measure the work, how you measure the process, and then at the end of the time period, see if you hit those metrics. If you did hit the metrics, then you found yourself an agency. This is the agency you want to work with. If it doesn't work out at this stage, what you want to do is do the pilot with the runner-up agency. Do the same thing with them. But again, this is a plan B. It should work out at this stage. You should be in a position to actually come to a more long-term, a more formal agreement with the agency.
Which talking about performance, I'm sorry, you were going to say something. Go ahead, because I want to go on to, well, point number 8 is about performance and how to measure that. But go ahead. You were going to say?
Oh, I was going to talk about performance, but you go ahead, and I'll say something at the end.
Right. So the pilot is, and by the way, it's not the only way to do this, but the pilot is a terrific way to really sort of, roll up your sleeves and do some work with the agency to really see, how they work and if there's a real fit. Obviously, there's a number of ways to doing pitches, and I think it goes on a case-by-case basis what the best approach may be. There may be timing constraints and so forth. But now you've gone through the pilot, you've selected an agency, you want to get going and do great work together, hopefully for many years. You're doing a contract. You want to pay the agency fairly, because if you don't pay them fairly, they're not going to put the resources behind it. Let's just be super clear about that. But how about some skin in the game? How about a performance bonus in the remuneration agreement that actually allows the agency to supercharge and super perform to reach the higher objectives in terms of the business. What do you think, Vivek?
You know, anyone who's worked on the client side understands how bonuses work and how, well, actually anyone who's worked on the agency side understands that as well. But the thought of being able to earn an extraordinary bonus makes it so much easier to put forward extraordinary effort. It's as simple as that. So the more of a carrot there is for the agency, the more the agency will align with your business objectives, which you want, and the more effort the agency will put in to getting you there. If they have no upside, you know, they'll say they're doing as much as they possibly can, but it's probably going to be all talk. If there's money on the table, they certainly will do extraordinary things. So I'm a big believer in more carrot and less stick. Let me put it like that. I think there's an excess of stick right now in the relationship. So put some more carrot in there.
Nothing like higher objectives and stretch objectives to help the client do well, and hopefully that translates into a little bit more compensation for the agency as well. Skin in the game is a great way to see where the commitment will go as well, and it's something that should go into all contracts. It doesn't happen in all contracts, by the way.
It should.
But it should be considered, because it's a terrific motivator. I'll go to the last point, which is fundamental, and this is beyond the pitch process. This is also something that you want to instill in your agency relationship process, and that is, you know, have the time to do periodic reviews in terms of, you know, the performance and what the relationship means. You call it the 3 Ps every 3 months. Why don't you tell us about the 3 Ps, Vivek?
Yeah,
and as it relates to
the 3
performance.
Ps. Any relationship needs fine-tuning, ongoing fine-tuning. And the fine-tuning is always about projects, the first P. What are the projects? How are we doing on them? What are the priorities? Because we live in a world of scarce resources. No one has unlimited resources. So if something is a priority and we need more resources on that, we may have to cut back on something else and just balance everything out. So that's the second B, priorities. And the third one is people. This is a people business. There may be some friction along the way. There may be someone who's underperforming. There may be someone who should be promoted because he's doing so well. So you want to talk about that, how the people are performing, and you want to make sure that it's a two-way discussion. It's not only the advertiser evaluating the people at the agency, but the agency should feel free to also make comments on the people on the advertiser side. This can be done basically with a 1-hour discussion every 3 months. The marketing director and the head of account management sit down and hash it out, and they have an ongoing discussion, and it'll help the account run smoothly.
So there you have it.
Alternately,
sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, alternately, there's third-party services that can also do something similar.
Right.
And if you want to hire those third-party services, then you just share the expense, because it's fair to share the expense.
I would recommend that.
Yep.
By the way, third-party services have worked a lot better in terms of evaluation. It's more and more agencies are subcontracting that service. It's also very objective. It's much more fair, and you hear it from someone who doesn't have, you know, an interest on one way or the other. Is very unbiased in the way they approach it.
And you evaluate both sides.
And evaluate both sides. Yeah. This comes to an end. We're coming to an end to our part two of the second part of and part two of this podcast. We went through what we think are things to consider, critical aspects as it relates to an agency search and what you want to choose, how you want to choose an agency in terms of that process. Probably best conducted by a consultant, honestly. We've been through many of those, but ultimately it's the investment and the time that will help you deliver better business results, bigger ideas, better processes, more efficient processes. All of this is about getting better work out in less time, in a more effective manner. CMOs are judged by their growth in sales and market share, not by what how eventually how much they save, or etc. That aside is another topic, and we'll talk about compensation a little bit more, because it's a very small percentage of the total investment that goes into the marketing budget. But getting the right partner is key. This is all about getting the right partner and what we want to look out for and what we want to avoid in terms of the potential minefield. So I'll close it out with that. Vivek, I don't know if you have any closing comments, and let's remind our viewers to subscribe, comment, give us feedback, and give us a ring if you guys, if anyone has a specific need or wants some clarification.
I just have one final comment. Remember, when you're doing a search, that you're not just looking for an agency, you're looking for someone to manage the totality of your marketing budget. So it's not about the agency fee, it's about everything you spend in marketing. You want to have it in the best hands possible. So this is, in our opinion, a better, faster, and cheaper way of doing agency search. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope to hear from you soon.
Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week with a new episode of everything that you wanted to know about advertising agencies that maybe you don't hear that much. Take care. Thanks for joining us.
Maybe we'll do it in Italian this time. Take care.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.